Hey everyone, welcome to Queerly Recommended, the podcast where we recommend queer films, books, TV shows, and more. I'm Kris Bryant, a contemporary romance writer for Bold Strokes Books, and this week I'm recommending a TV series on Paramount+.
And I'm Tara Scott. I review sapphic fiction at the Lesbian Review and Smart Bitches Trashy Books. And this week I am recommending a short manga series. If you would like to support the show, there's links in our show notes where you can contribute to our coffee, sign up for our newsletter, any of our socials, or you can even just tell a friend about us if you think they need more queer media recommendations. Word of mouth is an amazing thing. We have listener questions today. It has been a while.
It has
and we have a few, and I think they're pretty juicy. So I'm excited about this.
Yes. So the first one we have is from Harley. So Harley asks, who is your overall favorite couple from sapphic books? And who is your favorite couple from, for me, for one of my books?
Yes.
All right. So Tara.
First of all, I think this is a rude question. No, I'm kidding. But like to say just one.
Oh, it's hard. Yes.
Couple.
Mm-hmm.
Just the one. Because when I think about like, okay, who are some of the couples that I've really, really loved? Obviously, Vivian and Jules from sorry, I did that pause as like, wait, is that their names? Because I get the characters confused, yes. The character names confused from Truth and Measure and Above All Things, the Carlisle series from Rosalind Sinclair, and Milena Mackay's The Delicate Things We Make, because they both have Vivians that are both the Ice Queen characters, and Truth and Measure has Jules, and The Delicate Things We Make has Jamie. And actually, I love both of these couples very much. But I also actually see, this is where it's tough because I have like favorite couples maybe for certain authors. Like for Milena Mackay, right. My favorite couple of hers for sure is the couple from The Headmistress. I love that book. But yeah, the couple from Truth or Measure is just an incredible one for me. I still love, like, if I go back to kind of when I was starting to read lesfic, and even a couple of years into that, like the couple from Kiss the Girl, Melissa Braden's book.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like one of my top 5. Love so much. I love them. And of course, The Red Files by Lee Winter, like Catherine Ayers and Lauren, like I love them so much. But if I have to pick one, I feel like I'm being asked to kill my babies, which is rude.
Rude, Harley, rude.
So rude. It's probably going to have to be the Carlisle series.
Ooh.
I know.
Made a decision. I know it's hard. We've read too many good books. And
when we were talking about this before, you started talking about Radcliffe a little bit. And I mean, even some of hers, like there are like, because she does so many series. And so I love the Honor series. I love the main couple, but then I love even some of the sub couples. And like, there's one, I asked about it. When was it? Oh, I asked Radcliffe about it when I was recording on the Let's Do Books podcast. I was like, can we get one for Valerie and Diane? Like, can we get their book, please? And apparently I am not the only person who's asked, but we continue to not have their book.
Well, yeah.
Is what I will say.
She's running a company. Come on. Yes, but for sure, Radcliffe, Quinn, and Honor, for sure. I mean, they're a favorite couple. I think they're a favorite couple for a lot of lesbic readers.
So many.
Right.
So many. And I also, like, I'm a little bit afraid because I didn't mention. So just so no one comes after me. Of course, I love the couple from In Playing the Role of Yourself.
Oh, yeah.
They are wonderful. Similarly, I love the couple from All That Matters by Susan X. Maher, which I read, God, I have no idea how many times. Poppy Jenkins by,
right.
Claire. Like there's so many that are.
Yeah, that was an unfair question.
Which is also kind of the best kind.
That's true, because it makes us like talk about it for like a half an hour, and then we're like, maybe we should record this.
I know, right? Okay, so to the second half of the question, though. Who is your favorite couple from one of your books?
That's a tough one too. I have 2. Well, shit. There's so many. I like them for different reasons. Yeah. So obviously, Brooke and Cassie, they're a fan favorite. Everybody loves Temptation Brooke and Cassie. I mean, I love them. I love them because Brooke's an ice queen and because Cassie just doesn't give a fuck about anything. But she's so awkward and she's fun and she's trying to be flirty and she's failing. So I really like their dynamic because it doesn't seem like they're ever going to get together. And they do. And you're just like, wow, how did that happen? Yeah. So I really like them. And then, of course, I love Claire and Emery from Not Guilty.
I mean,
and Shameless. I mean,
yeah,
they have a really good relationship. And so I had so much fun writing them.
Now I'm trying to think of what's my favorite of yours. And I'm doing the thing where I'm like, because there's been so many. And we've talked about this before, about how my memory is not the best. And as we talked about last time, we perhaps know why now with an ADHD diagnosis.
Yes.
And so it's like, excuse me while I go over to Goodreads
and
where I can remind myself.
That's true.
Okay. I'm going to say a thing that I firmly believe. I don't think Forget Me Not gets enough love. I fucking love that book. I loved it so much. And I'm even looking at the ratings. Like, I'm not saying it's rated badly on Goodreads. It absolutely is not at all. Like, it's well over the 4 stars, but I just don't see people talking about it enough.
I know. It's so, yeah, I mean, it hit, I don't remember when it was published, but it kind of got like, just like, nobody read it, and that's okay.
Okay. I think it's because the cover does not convey.
You hate that cover.
I do. I hate that cover. Because that book is so, like, it's passionate and it's sexy and the characters are so dynamic, and you look at the cover and it's like, this is a chill, tranquil scene. And I'm like, no.
And it's not. It's funny because
not that kind of book.
Britt Ryder came out of that book because I really pushed the limits sexually as far as writing. And so, like, that book is super hot. So if you like Temptation, you need to go back and pull up Forget Me Not, because like, that is like one step below erotic romance for sure. It might even be on the same playing field. It's very, very hot. And so I just figured, you know what, if I can write this, I can just push it a little bit further and write erotica. And so Britt Ryder came out of that book.
Yeah. I don't know if it's still like a thing or even like a distinction kind of anymore. I remember way back before I was a staff writer at Smart Bitches Trashy Books, when I was just a fan of the site. Gosh, it's probably more than a decade ago. And they were talking about how, like, those books that are not quite erotic or romance, but there's like something more than a regular kind of contemporary romance. And they were talking at that point about like spicy romances to cover that. And that's where I feel like Forget Me Not falls in.
Yeah. Right. I agree.
I love that book. People, go read that book. That's my favorite couple from Chris's book.
Yay.
Books. And I love a lot of the couples. Obviously, I love the couple who like Listen and Falling and like the same one you listed already. Like, they're all great, but like that one just holds a special place in my heart because I just like, somebody read this and talk to me. So far, no one's talked to me yet.
It's like Carrie, and maybe, is it Grace? I honestly can't remember the names. I know. Well, who am I asking? What am I thinking?
Yeah, you're asking the one person who can't remember
names,
titles, or character names.
That's true.
All right, next question. KB asks, favorite ice queen? ?
Another rude question.
Another rude question. Kris, do you have? So I'm going to throw it to you first. Do you have a favorite ice queen?
I can't answer this. There are way too many. It's one of my favorite tropes.
Right.
Ice cream. I mean, I just love them. So I can't really answer that. I'm going to throw it to you because I know, like, you like have a
bunch.
lot. Yes.
Yeah. Ice queens are one of my absolute favorite tropes too. And I think because it's one of those that works really well in a number of settings. Like, I love Ice Queen celebrity. I love Ice Queen workplace. I love Ice Queen enemies to lovers. I love, I was about to say Ice Queen friends to lovers. I don't think it exists. If any author is listening to this and is inclined to say, how would you write an Ice Queen romance in a friends to lovers? I would love to see it. Please write that book and tag me when it's published.
Nice.
So I don't think I can. Well, I definitely can't pick just one off the bat. So I guess I'm going to name a bunch and then I'll force myself to pick one because I really loved the Music in the Mirror by Lola Keeley. And I think that has a really excellent Ice Queen situation going on there as someone who, you're talking about like it's ballet, but I think one of the things that comes across is ballet is almost like an extreme sport.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And seeing a romance kind of come out of that world where we're talking about two people that have this intense passion for ballet and develop one for each other. But like one of them is an ice queen and like not one of the chiller ice queens out there. I quite like that. Obviously, again, we'll go back to a couple of what I was talking about in the couples. So both Vivians, frankly. I mean, there's just certain authors that do really excellent ice queens. I think the authors writing some of the best, and when I say this, I want to caveat it, right? There's lots of great ice queens kind of all over the place, but there are certain handful of authors that write more of them than other people. So that's what I'm talking about with this. That's where you see Lee Winter, Milena Mackay, Rosalind Sinclair. And I'm going to throw one in that I think a lot of people don't necessarily count, but absolutely counts is Rachel Spangler. Like,
oh yeah,
Ray has written quite a few, doesn't write only, but like has written enough that I would include them in that group of people who write quite a few and like fucking great ones that have like actually pissed me off intensely. So like, I'm going to say a controversial thing because in development, I've seen get kind of almost universal love. People love that book. And I would say that I appreciated that book, but that Ice Queen, I wanted to shake the shit out of her because of how she operated sometimes. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually think that's a really good thing because it challenged me and it challenged my thinking. And so I really appreciated that. So in that respect, I would say that's probably one of my favorites. But I think another favorite would have to be one that we talked about very recently, which was Michelle Hastings in The Fixer and Chaos Agent, Lee Winter's new duology. And I think the thing that I love about that particular Ice Queen story is what I talked about in that episode. If you haven't listened to it, please go back. It's just one or two, it's two episodes behind this one. But what I loved, it was so different because we don't just see the Ice Queen melt and like, oh, she's only sweet kind of around this character and then she's still like the Ice Queen all the time. We see a true like transformation of who she is fundamentally as a person, how she operates in the world. And I think that's so interesting because it turns into what I'm imagining in her future is she can tap into the Ice Queen when she needs it. But like they're doing change the world type work. So she's probably not going to need to do it unless it's in like certain fundraising cases, which would be like very special as she's like matching herself to whoever she's trying to get to give some money over or whatever. So yeah, I think those are probably the ones, which feels so weird to say. Because if you would have asked me that like last year, I would have said Catherine Ayers and then just walked away and not thought about it. Yeah, like I think those two books really shifted my thinking in some ways, which I find very exciting. Like to see, and I mean, I'm excited when any book does that for me, but when a romance does it for me, I get extra excited. So yeah. Okay, did you come up with an Ice Queen yet? Or are you just not doing
I'm just listening to you. Yeah, I was like, no, yeah, that one.
That's perfect. I mean, I picked two.
Every time,
I picked two. Do you want to have the character from In Development, and then I'll just hang on to Michelle Hastings. I will let you borrow mine.
I will borrow yours for that question. Thank you.
Okay. Last question, Vita Lacari, and I am excited to hear the answer to this one. Vita says, though I'm late at reading it, I just finished Always and want to know where Kris got her inspiration for such an incredible book. So Kris,
so sweet.
What is your inspiration for Always?
So I had to really think back. Like, it's been a while since I've written that. It's been a spell. So who says that? It's been a spell.
You.
Who am I? I know.
I don't know. Is that a Midwestern thing? I don't
No,
know.
it's not at all.
Oh,
I don't know where that came from.
is it a Southern thing? Is it actually a thing?
Is it like a British thing? I don't know what
know.
that is. That's a good one. I'll have to look that one up. Okay. So I had to think about it. I was like, where did I come up with this idea? And so I think I got the idea from the reboot of Veronica Mars, because this starts off, I thought, how cool would it be to write a story about a private investigator who's just getting started, and like, what would be a really cool case? And when we were growing up, we were reading books like Nancy Drew, Trixie Belden, those kind of books, and it was, or Encyclopedia Brown, where they always had like a something to solve.
Yeah.
And so I thought, how cool would it be to get something as your first assignment and have it be like some family mystery? So I was like, okay, this is good. I'll go with this family mystery.
Yeah.
And it's her, it's her great grandmother who passes and gives her a packet of information, and just I say information. It's a locket with a photo from the 1940s inside this little heart locket, and the words say "Find her" on it. I mean, that is such a typical, any sort of book / movie PI thing. Like, that's how everything starts off. So I just kind of went with it. I didn't really know how it was going to go, or I didn't know the history. So I just kind of wrote it as I went, and I had to do a lot of studying, and I thought it was more, it takes place at the very end of World War II, and then at the beginning of after the war. And that's kind of where I say it takes place. It's past and present. So you've got, this private investigator looking for her great grandmother's person that she wants her to find. And then, it's modern day time. So, and you learn about the great grandparents or great grandmothers through letters that they sent back and forth. And I remember reading, somebody was like, I read a review, and somebody was like, well, how could you not mention everything that happened during the war during these letters? And I'm like, because it's a romance, and sometimes you don't need to write about what's happening all the time. You just move on. And like a couple letters, there was like a mention of the war, but it wasn't like some people were mad that I didn't talk about everything that happened during that horrific war. And I was like, because it's a romance. It's not a fucking history book. So,
yeah, I mean, I sort of get it if you're specifically trying to create a historical romance, but I didn't get the sense that you were.
Yeah, it's not. It really isn't. It's just the history part just takes place in the letters, and you're just trying to figure out, like, who is this person? Who is this woman in the locket? That's it. So
yeah, this isn't the same as Letters Never Sent.
Right. It's not like that at all. It's literally a packet of love letters, and a locket. I don't even think that that's true. I don't even think that they had the letters at the time. It was just finding out who this person was. And so just the mystery of that. And so that's kind of how I came up with it. It all kind of started with Veronica Mars.
I never would have guessed that, but also I kind of love it because Veronica Mars was such a great show.
It was. It really was.
All right, Kris.
Yes.
What have you been reading or watching lately?
Okay, so last time we talked about the show, the prequel / miniseries called 1923, and guess what?
What?
Spencer still hasn't made it home. Like, the season is over. It's done. It's done. He never made it home. But
oh boy.
I found out that there is a second season.
Oh.
So why couldn't they do a second season of 1883? Because there were so many unanswered questions there. And I was devastated when that ended. And so then I was like, when this happened, when I watched the final episode of 1923, I'm like, you got to be shitting me. Like, they like, what? And so then I Googled that they do have a season 2. So at least we'll get some answers. Good. We'll get some answers. So that's good. So, because I really need Spencer to get home. Because apparently it takes like 4 years to get from Africa to, Yellowstone. It takes a long time, and not 4 years, but it's taking a super fucking long time.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is a long time.
By the time like the letter gets to him in Africa, it's been several months.
Oh.
And then him trying to get passage back to America, that's also several months. So we're talking, this is like, it's probably going to be 2 years by the time he gets back. That's insane. But anyway, yeah, so I'm watching that, and I finished that up.
Okay.
And so I have spent a lot of my free time watching reality shows. So I watched The Perfect Match, and 2 of the contestants were from the show The Mole. So then I'm like, oh, what's that? But I digress. Let's go back to The Perfect Match. It does have a queer couple on it, but the entire show was such a time sucker and a complete waste of time. And like 2 contestants labeled themselves as bi, but I'm 99% sure that they just did it for show and for camera time.
Well, Francesca is actually bi and is with a trans man now.
Really?
Yeah. So that was how I found out about the show, which I have not watched. I just did some like, I read the like, where are they now type stuff.
Oh, did you? Okay, I haven't done that.
Because how did this happen? I think it was my phone was like, hey, you should read this article about what's her name. And it was talking about how she wanted to leave the show. And then they said, no, you can actually go on a date with that other woman if you want. And she was like, okay, cool.
Abby.
But apparently the whole experience was so awful that when she got out of there, she texted this guy who they're like an on again, off again couple. And she texted him to say, I just did this show and it was really traumatizing. Can we hang out, please? And they've been together since then.
So here's the deal. So Francesca, when it first came on, I was like, I dig her. I really dig her. Yeah. And like the first 2 episodes, she wasn't like real bitchy or anything. It was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And she was just kind of like, everybody wanted to date her. Like they all wanted to hook up with Francesca. And then like about season or episode 3 or 4, like her bitchiness came out. And I was like, never mind. She is not somebody I would date. But it just felt forced. Everything about that show I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that she was really interested in Abby. So maybe it wasn't for show. Maybe I still think, I'm going to have to say, I still think it's for show, but good that she's queer. But the person that she hooked up with on the show, like their interactions were so uncomfortable. And you know how I am about chemistry. I got to feel it. Like I have to feel it. And I did not feel it. So I was a little upset about that. Like, okay, this is fake. So, but I'm glad that I know this about her now. Yeah. Because in the show, she like hugged this giant of a man. And as she's hugging him and saying goodbye, she's like, oh, we're going to see each other outside of the show. So it's like things like that they pick up that you're just like, okay, this is so fake. What am I doing wasting, 12 hours of my life?
Yeah. So for the people who haven't watched it, my understanding is that it's a dating show where they bring contestants from a bunch of the other Netflix reality shows and throw them together in this like tropical location and give them a bunch of booze and are like, hey, go bang it out if you want.
Right. And you have to pick somebody or you go home. Like you have to match up with somebody or by the end of the night you go home. So everybody's like scrambling around trying to hook up with somebody and they're like, oh, I really liked you, but you were talking to this person. And so then they match up. And so they're there for another day in the show. And I forgot, I think like the winner who's considered the perfect match, the winner got a trip, all expense paid trip to anywhere in the world they wanted to go. I think
they didn't end up going on the trip.
Did they not?
That's what I read.
I need to read what you read because I'm sitting here wondering, oh, I wonder if they're still together. Oh, I wonder if they're they didn't go. I would
together.
fake it. I would fake it just to go on this mass. I mean, you faked it the whole time. Why can't you just like fake it to go on the trip?
It's a great question.
It really is.
I don't know. It just sounds like fuckery. Like, is that what these people's jobs are?
Yes.
Like when you look at, like, for me, hearing that Shane and Damien and like Shane was the fucking worst. Well, no, he wasn't the worst.
He wasn't the worst.
He was the second worst. Shake was the worst.
Which one? Oh, Chase. Yeah.
No, Shake.
Shake? Who was Shake?
Remember the Indian guy who was with, he went to the altar with Deepti and then she's like, I'm not going to marry you.
Right.
And I was
totally
like, thank
forgot.
goodness, because she is a queen and he is a shitbag.
Fuck, you're right.
And then I thought Shane was the next worst after him on that season. And then
yeah, you're right.
Damian, I don't know. I thought he was really unfair. No, I thought the way he treated Giannini was really unfair.
Right. It was very unfair.
I'm not going to say she's perfect, but yeah. So then I was like, wait. So they each have gone and done that season. And now they've gone and done this. Like, do these people have jobs? Or is this their jobs?
Don't know. Like, I think, is this the opportunity to be on television? Is this their goal in life, to be on TV? Like, I felt like the only genuine, and I say genuine with like tongue in cheek, but
yeah.
The only genuine person was a woman. Her name is Ines, I think. Ines. And she has a French accent. So of course, I'm like,
yeah, you're not
and
mad
she was
at
like
that.
there. I'm not mad at that at all. And I think that she was really there to find love. And so like she tried several times to just leave. She tried to make it work with people that she was attracted to, I think physically or emotionally. And then she just couldn't match up because everybody's a ding dong. So she's just like, I'm out. I'm sorry. And I'm like, here's my number. It's just pretty. She was attractive, but she was also very smart, and she really wanted love. And I feel like, she kind of got shafted on that show.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I'm sad about that. So maybe she'll end up being like the Bachelorette or something somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Who knows? You never know. So because of that show, then I'm like, oh, two of the characters, Dom and Will, were from The Mole. And I'm like, what's The Mole? I don't know the show The Mole.
Yeah.
So then I got sucked into it, and I will never watch it again because my anxiety level was at a 10 the whole time. But of course I had to finish it. I had to figure out who the mole was and who won the game. Like the game winner won $100,000. And so I had to watch it just to see who won. Yeah.
And did you guess correctly?
I guessed the mole correctly because that person couldn't act for shit.
Okay.
And as far as the winner, I guess I really didn't think about the winner. I was more concerned with finding out who the mole was. Like, I didn't care who won the money. I just knew that, oh, this person's fake, because I've seen enough reality shows. And like, let me tell you something, actors are not given enough credit, because like people who pretend to be something they're not. I mean, if you're just an average person trying to do this kind of show, you will fail miserably because you don't have the acting experience. And so I kind of knew who the mole was right away. So anyway, and right now I'm just in the middle of edits. I just got edits back for one of my books, and I'm trying to get this other book written, and it's not happening because I'm still struggling a little bit emotionally. And so who knows what's coming out next year for me. I don't think there's going to be a lot, but that's what I've been
whatever comes out is going to be good.
Let's hope so. So. What about you? What have you been reading or watching lately?
All right. So obviously still watching Drag Race season 15. I don't think there's anything really that worth talking about. So we're just going to move on. So still watching in case, well, my fear is I've talked about it every other episode. So if I weren't to even mention it, somebody might say, has she been body snatched? What's going on? But something that Neil and I got into and we watched over the last week is it's on Netflix. It's called Physical 100. We got pretty obsessed with it. So it's a show that's based out of Korea. And the idea is that they are trying to find the person with the best physique in all of Korea, who has the best, strongest, best endurance, like kind of all that. And so they start with, the reason it's called 100, the 100 is in the title, is they start with 100 contestants and they go from there. So there is 9 episodes and they have a series of challenges that they have to go through. And so the first challenge, there's almost like, so there's 5 rounds, but there's almost like a pre-round, I guess. There's like a pre-challenge that is still incredibly fucking challenging on its own, where they make these people hang on to, it's this like big metal framing thing, and they have to hang on to it for as long as they can. And they have them like split into 2 groups. So 50 people are hanging on the frame at a time. And then based on like times, they sort it into, okay, these were the 50 best people and these were the 50 worst people. And the 50 best people get to choose one person to do something against in the next round. And they don't really know what it's going to be at that point, but it's like a grappling challenge almost. Okay. And so, and they can choose like the best people, they can choose from the people who didn't do the best, or they can choose from the people who did do the best. Okay. Because I mean, some of the people who were down at like the very bottom of that, like numbers, I think it was like numbers 95 through 100 were like some of the strongest men in Korea, like these big, strong dudes, which didn't mean they were bad at it. It just meant they couldn't hold their fucking body weight up on that frame, which
I
fair
thought it was
enough.
a great challenge. I watched the first episode, and so like I had to kind of get through the first 20 minutes. I had to kind of fast forward because everybody walked into this room and you had to find a bust of yourself. Like there's a bust and you have to find it.
Your torso.
Like, and so you're looking for it and you meet everybody. And I'm like, this is so boring because everybody's like, oh, you're so
that's
big,
most of the first
so
episode.
And so I'm like, oh. So I got to the hanging part and I thought, what a brilliant, absolutely brilliant challenge to start with, because some of these people they're so big and bulky. And you know, everybody there was looking at the biggest and bulkiest going, we're not going to win this. And so for the first challenge to have that, to actually carry your own body weight or hold on your breath, that's great. So I did watch that. I did watch the first episode, but then I had the stupid fucking mole to watch.
Well, and with this too, like you have to actually watch. It's not one you can really just put in the background unless I suppose you turn on. I don't know if there's a dubbed version. We watched it with the subtitles. So the individual challenges that was interesting to see. They also do group challenges. The only thing that we didn't really love is that, especially when it came to like group challenges and choosing people, that's when you see like the misogyny come out pretty much in full force. Is it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to play against this team. It's going to be easy to win because there's more women in that team. I'm just like, fuck you, dude. And certain times where even the women themselves, like you can see their internalized misogyny showing, where it's like, okay, look, you're choosing, but like, I know we're women, but we're not like normal women. Like, look at us. We're like better. And I was like, oh, gross. But the thing we did love about it is that like, if you can at least like, if you can kind of put the misogyny to the side, which I won't judge if people are saying this is for me for that reason, they're so supportive of each other. And there's so much sportsmanship. And I just found that so lovely, because I feel like if we were watching, I mean, sorry, Fred, but if we were watching an American show like this, there would be so much trash talking.
Yeah, there would be.
And it's not like that. Like there's like a little bit of gentle ribbing here and there about how they're going to be better. But when it comes time to like, actually people are competing and participating, they're like cheering each other on. And when it gets down to the last couple of challenges, especially the second last challenge is one where it's like the teams got separated. And so they're like all individual contestants now in groups of 4 doing 5 different challenges. And what I found really, really beautiful is that when the people who were watching saw someone struggling, not only were they encouraging them and cheering them on to keep going, but in some cases, even like calling out technique suggestions. Because like if they can see someone struggling and if they change their technique, they'll be better. They're not holding it back because like they want someone to struggle or they want them to fall behind. They're trying to help them out. And I just thought that was really beautiful.
I would like to introduce you to Survivor, where that very thing happens.
Does it?
You start off in teams, and like you really help your team members, you pump them up, and then when it gets down to individual, you know that you've developed a friendship with these people. It's been it's like a month long or however long, and you're with them 24/7. I mean, there's some cattiness and some like behind the back thing because you want to win this game, but at the same time, everybody knows they're going to look like a douche if they don't support their team members. So, but I also feel like with Physical 100. That there were a lot of there were several like Olympic people. They just have a different mentality. Like this is a very supportive environment. I think Olympians are just very supportive. I mean, yes, there's a whole competition where you're dealing with, different countries, but I feel like it's just a different mentality because you are the best of the best. And it was just. So there was a lot of respect when the Olympians came in the room. I noticed that. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, true. You're blah, blah, blah. And so, so I did appreciate that. And it is completely different than American shows, but we do have some that have supporting, encouraging, contestants, some.
Well, and also to be fair, like kind of on the flip side of that, there were probably more injuries that happened on this show than would be allowed on an American show. Because I think American shows, like, not that you can't get injured on, say, like an American Ninja Warrior or something like that, but I do think that health and safety standards in the US, probably because your culture is slightly more litigious.
For sure.
But that was the thing. Neil went in and he did a bunch of reading, and like, there's somebody who left that show with like a paralyzed arm. Like there were some pretty gnarly injuries that happened as a result, but it was kind of cool to see. You're right. There were Olympians, there were MMA fighters, there were CrossFitters, there were like military, like special forces people. One of the people that ended up doing quite well and who was one of my favorites, he's an ice climber and a search and rescue guy. And so cool. he's wiry, but like he went very far. So yeah, it was pretty cool. Love that.
So I might have to finish it then.
Maybe. But like I said, the misogyny kind of sucks when it rears its head. Although in some cases too, like having women on a team is not always necessarily like a big liability. Like there was one challenge where they have to move. So the second challenge, which is the first group one, they have to move sand, but they have to build the bridge before they can move the sand across it. And so there's these boards with these like big ass Velcro strips attached. And the person who built literally the best bridge was a woman. She's probably one of the tiniest women, but she's a stunt woman.
Oh.
So because she's a stunt woman, she knows how to do some stuff that other people just don't know how to do as well. So yeah. Oh,
that's so cool. Yeah, I might have to watch it.
And then for reading, we're going to say reading with my ears because they're audiobooks, which is still reading in my opinion. Some people think it's not reading. I think that's rude and ableist. It's absolutely still reading. And for me with nonfiction, it's the best way. I struggle to read nonfiction with my eyes. So a book that I started this morning is People Change by Vivek Shraya. I talked about Vivek Shraya, I think in the second episode.
It was early on.
Third. It was very early on. Yeah. One of my favorite books ever, The Subtweet by Vivek Shraya. Right. If you haven't heard me talk about it, go back to that episode. I gush all my feelings out. Yes. But People Change is one of her nonfiction books. And so if you don't know who Vivek Shraya is, God, she's fucking incredible. She is an Indian Canadian trans woman. She is an author, a musician, a model, an actor, like just big time multimedia. And this is one of her nonfiction books. And it's very short. The audiobook is only 2 hours. So like I started listening to this morning and I've already listened to a quarter of it. And it's kind of like a handbook or a meditation on the idea of change, and change often through, at least so far in the book anyway, like appearance change. And it starts off by, with her childhood influences, there's Madonna, there's Hinduism and kind of some others. And I would say that so far, although her trans identity comes up, I don't think it's really about her being trans and her trans identity. I feel like that shows up a lot more in her other very short, but very excellent book, I'm Afraid of Men. So far I'm really digging it. I probably recommend it. I would be shocked if I didn't, because I definitely recommend I'm Afraid of Men. So I don't know, just like go read everything Vivek Shraya has done because she's so good.
Very good. Yes.
And then the other nonfiction book is one that I started. I'm only a few chapters in. My company had a series of events for Black History Month, and one of them was a book club reading, because we do have a book club for our Black employee network. And we chose White Women by Regina Jackson and Syra Rao. That is so good. And I think it's really, really crucial, important reading for white women, especially, but really any woman who wants to truly engage in anti-racism work. I'm going to say that this is not an easy book to read or listen to, but I think that if you truly want to change and be someone who can be a co-conspirator with the Black community, you have to set your ego to the side, because it addresses a lot of the ways in which white women are upholding white supremacy. We not only benefit from it, we uphold it in a lot of the ways we operate. And that often by, it's very easy for us to get our feelings hurt as we're
Yes.
trying to engage in the work and then walk away from it because our feelings have been hurt. And so, yeah, I definitely recommend it. It talks about things like how our kindness can be weaponized and how even just the way white women talk about each other behind our backs.
Right.
And it was funny because I went into it thinking like, yeah, I try to be supportive as much as possible. And like, I'm not going to get into the full kind of explanation of the things I do. Cause I think that's the same kind of unnecessary reinforcing behavior of like, how could you when I'm the person who, but I'm reading the preface and there's this call out to the readers that's like, and if you think this is not about you, yes, it's about you too. You also are one of these white women. And I realized that I had been doing this thing where I was talking about white feminists as this, like, I'm not a part of that. And like, I know my relationship with my gender is somewhat complicated, but it doesn't mean that I can exempt myself from this group. Like I am a part of the problem. And so I found it incredibly helpful and I'm looking forward to finishing it. It's fabulous on audio because it seems like Regina Jackson writes some of the chapters and Syra Rao writes some of the chapters. And so there's a different narrator for each. So you know who's kind of talking at any given time. I don't know if it's actually them doing it or not though. So yeah, that is it. What is your official recommendation for this week?
Okay, well, my official recommendation is what I mentioned a little bit, I touched on last week, Wolfpack. Here's the synopsis. A teenage boy and girl get their lives changed forever when a California wildfire awakens a terrifying supernatural creature. As the full moon rises, all teens come together to unravel the secret that connects them. So, even though I try to stay away from only recommending queer teen shows, I'm recommending this one because there's a story here. It's not, so it's not just like teenage angst, like, oh, I like you, do you like me? That kind of thing. And then having a lot of hormones and angers and kids stomping off. It's not like that.
So is that why you haven't recommended Euphoria yet? I haven't watched it. I don't know.
I haven't finished Euphoria. I started watching it and I thought it was really good, but it's also very harsh. It's like a harsh reality that I don't know about.
It sounded like it would hurt my heart too much to watch it.
Yeah, it was pretty harsh. So I'll probably get back into it, but it's also very heavy and very deep. And I can't deal with that right now. I just kind of have to handle things like werewolves. Like that's where I'm at right now.
Or physical 100.
Yeah, physical 100. So Buffy, we all remember Buffy in this, Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's actually an arson investigator. And I thought she was a cop the first time I watched it because I wasn't really paying attention. Yes. So remember how I said in the first episode that it's really graphic? I said you couldn't watch it. You personally couldn't watch it because there's a lot of blood and guts and gore and just everything. So these kids are on a bus, a school bus, and they're stuck in a traffic jam. And it's so weird. It's one of those towns you're like, is this a small town? Is this a big town? But like there's a lot of cars jammed at once. And they say, I think it says it's on a highway, but it really isn't a highway. It's like outside my door, and all of a sudden there's like 80 cars piled up. Like how would that happen? But anyway, so everything is suddenly burning because there's a fire that goes out of control. It gets out of control. It's getting closer and closer to the highway, and people jump out of their cars. They just like leave their cars. They abandon everything just to get away from all the animals, the woodland creatures are running out of the forest.
Oh yeah,
like
that's
deer
a terrible
and
sign.
Rams, and you're just like, oh, I got to get out of here. Anyway, so a lot of people die in this because there's this creature that jumps out too. And so there's like massive chaos. You have fire, you have smoke, you have all these animals running, you have people running, you have people screaming. Anyway, so during this whole massive chaos, this creature bites two of the kids. I mean, it kills a bunch of people, but also like bites or scratches these two kids. And so what this whole series is about, it's about how these two teenagers try to figure out what's going on with them. Like things are definitely changing for them, but they're kind of ignoring it out of fear. And then it becomes too big to ignore. So in this, there's also two siblings. And I say siblings, quote unquote, because they're really not related, but they were raised together.
They're not going to fuck, are they?
They're not going to fuck. At least they haven't yet.
Okay.
So it's kind of like their quote unquote dad finds them. I say them. I think he's actually, I can't remember like who the real dad is. But anyway, so he knows that they're different. Like they are like werewolves, and he's kind of kept it to himself. But they go to school with these two teens that just got bit. And so they're there to kind of help them.
Okay.
And so it's not like, oh, wow, we have superpowers. Let's go save the world. You know, they're confused and they're scared. So they're slowly learning what makes them different. And the good thing is that we're learning at the same time. So we don't know ahead of time what's going to happen. Like we don't know, oh, don't go in there because this person's in there and they're going to jump out and kill you. It's not like that. It's you learn as they learn. So it's I like that. I don't know what it's called. I know it's called something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I like it. And another thing that is revealed between these four people, these four teenagers that make the quote unquote wolf pack. See, there it is. So one of the guys has severe anxiety, and whenever he's having an attack, the other three feel it. So they can feel, and they're learning that they can communicate in their minds without, calling.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It has this thing has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And so for the first 3 episodes, it appears that there's this huge giant werewolf is out to kill them. And then you're like, but is it really? There's a lot going on, and you really don't know who's good, who's evil, or who the werewolf is. Like that's the whole thing. You need to find out who this werewolf is. And like I said, you learn things as you go. So we know that Sarah Michelle Gellar, she's this arson investigator, and you know that she knows something's up. Like nobody's saying the word werewolf. Nobody wants to say it because that just throws a whole paranormal panic to the whole town, this small, giant, little, large city, whatever this is. It's so weird. And you know that she knows something, but what isn't she telling them / us, since we're learning as well? And by the end of episode 5, you're like, holy shit, like that. There's a moment you're like, oh my God. So I think I know what it is. I think I know what's going on. I think I figured it out, but I can't really talk about it because it's still ongoing. It's one of those stupid weekly shows that we used to have pre-COVID. So I can't binge it, but it's not done, but I recommend it because there's plenty of gay kids and they're all about hooking up. And here's something: if you're a werewolf, you're extremely horny. So this is probably why I was Team Jacob and not Team Edward. So I'm just throwing that out there from the past.
I hear that lines up with what we learned from Radcliffe's werewolf series, which I've never read.
Well, there you have it. I agree. Yes, there's I have had conversations with my friend KB Draper about the Radcliffe series and being werewolves and stuff. So any sort of trigger warning, there's a lot of drug use and teenage partying. And I'm like, I never partied like this when I was a kid or a teenager, but then I remembered I was a complete introverted nerd. So I never had the opportunity, but I'm sure they did. I just was never invited. So and it's so weird because like I said, this town is like, it's so fictitious. I don't know if it's small or little, but they have like, there's always like a massive, not really a rave going on, but like a party where there's like the techno music, and all these gay people hook up, and that like how does that happen in a small town? There's like 12 of you that might be gay, maybe queer, I don't know. So but it is entertaining. It's nothing that's going to change your life, but it is entertaining for me. And there are and here I love it because I love the fact that I have been watching queer television now, and I've been looking for queer movies and queer shows, for the 2+ years and before that, since we've been doing the show. And I love that I can see a couple on TV and I don't even recognize that they're gay. It's just a couple on TV. And I love that I've gone through this whole process, and I'm hoping that people see it as a normalcy as well.
Yes.
So anyway, so that's what I've been watching. That is my official recommendation. And what about you? What is yours?
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought that I would have finished Melanie Mackay's book by now. And I do love it very much, the new one. But I got derailed last weekend by a list of sapphic manga. And I got very excited. And I sort of dove into one where here's the thing. I'm going to disclaim it right off the bat. The premise is very sketchy. But the reason I read it is because it was rating so highly on Goodreads that I was like,
Ooh.
okay, there has to be something going on here. It is a sapphic romance manga. It's called I Can't Believe I Slept With You by Miyako Miyahara. And so there's only 3 volumes. I read the whole thing in like, well, it was last Saturday. And there's a twist that happens. So I had to go back and read the whole thing all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Which I did yesterday. Okay. So, like I said, sketchy promise, please stick with me because I promise it's actually not a super sketchy series. Chio Kaduka, she's 24. She's broke. She quit her job in video gaming a few months prior. She's been wallowing since then. Her wallowing appears to include a lot of alcoholic beverages, let us say. So when the story opens, Kaduka, she's hammered because she's still like she's mid-wallow. And her landlady tells her that she's 3 months behind in paying her rent. And so Kaduka says, I can't pay that. I haven't been working. And the landlady says, well, you know what? Have sex with me. And then it cuts to the right. And it cuts to the morning after. Well, this is why I say the premise is so sketchy. So you turn the page and it's the next morning. They've had sex. Kaduka is confused and alarmed because she's straight. But they work out this arrangement. It's a little bit weird, but basically it's like, well, here's the thing. If you do like a bunch of favors for me, it will end up kind of covering off. And she said, well, you know, like I don't know. Somehow they end up in this, like, we're going to move into in together situation, because that way, if the landlady moves in there, she can rent out her space, use that money to pay cover, for the, exactly.
Okay.
But I mean, here's the thing that ends up happening. Most of the favors, and because it's not, and it sounds like, oh, well, you just need to fuck me like 25 times, but that's not actually what it ends up being. It's usually Kaduka is doing things that just makes her feel cared for and valued, because she clearly is like quite a lonely person. And because the opening is told entirely from Kaduka's perspective and she's hammered, we kind of later figure out, oh, this is a really unreliable telling of their first meeting, quote unquote. And so then later on we get more information and then kind of a full reveal from the landlady's perspective, and it completely recontextualizes that opening.
That's cool. Yeah.
And a lot of the first book. So yeah, like I said, very highly rated on Goodreads. So even though, because a part of me was like, I don't know about this. This sounds like real dubious consent territory. But I was so intrigued that I decided to give it a try. And I'm so glad that I did. One other thing I think that's worth calling out right off the bat, Kaduka is 24 and Ritsuka is the landlady. She's 19.
See, I did not think that at all. I was like, okay, she's 64. There's like a massive age gap. All the people who love age gaps. Can you handle that?
Yes.
She's 19. She's a bait. What is she doing as a landlady? Like what?
Well, I know. I would also like to know that. But so that's the thing I think is interesting. So there is a power imbalance from like a financial perspective.
Right.
But it's not the story of like a predatory older woman who's taking advantage of someone who's younger than her. So most of it is told from Kaduka's perspective. And one of the things that I personally really loved about this is the way we see her bisexual awakening unfold. It's really, really beautifully done, because she thinks at the beginning that she is completely straight. And then she starts to have these kind of like new feelings because not only does the landlady move in, and actually she calls her landlady almost right up until the end. Because at one point she even says like, what's your real name? And she's like, I just call me landlady. I'd really prefer that. But when she moves in, she's like, Jesus Christ, we got to like clean up this apartment. We need to like, you need to start eating normal food. And so she's like cooking for her and she's cleaning for her and taking care of her. And every so often making a crack about like, well, just sleep with me then. But we learned that it's almost like a holding her away thing by making those kinds of comments, like keeping her at arm's length by making her unnerved because she thinks this is a straight person. She's never going to be into me. And instead, though, because we're following Kaduka's perspective, we see as she starts to feel things that are really confusing at first. And then actually, when she realizes what she's feeling, like it becomes almost exhilarating as she just falls more and more and more from her. But because it's a graphic novel, even though we don't necessarily see into Ritsuka, the landlady's perspective very often. We can see her physical responses to things. And so even halfway through that first volume, we start to see, oh, she might have feelings for Kaduka too, that she's not saying, because she's saying these things that are meant to kind of like hold her at arm's length, but there's something going on there. And so I actually think this series has some of the best pining that I've seen anywhere before. I know, right? Because Kazuka figures out, oh, I have a crush on Ritsuka. Well, no, landlady, because she doesn't even know her name at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then like at one point even realizes that she's in love with her. But because of the favors, this contract that they signed where like Kaduka's going to do all these favors for her, it actually does really interesting things with the pining itself, because even when Kaduka knows that she's in love, like she knows that she's completely in love, and she even confesses her love at one point, Ritsuka doesn't seem to be able to believe it. And I think it's a combination of Kaduka had said in their very early days, no, I am completely straight. That is never, ever going to change. But I also think she generally has a hard time believing that anyone can care about her, because she doesn't have friends. She doesn't interact with family. We don't see, like, she's quite isolated. And so Kaduka will make a gesture, even like asking to like, hey, I want to kiss you. And Ritsuka is like, it's almost like this bittersweet thing, because clearly she wants this. Like she wants a relationship with her. She clearly has feelings too, but doesn't believe that she can have it. And I just like, I wanted to wrap her in bubble wrap, because like oh, come on. So yes, I loved seeing how important they become to each other, the way they change and grow. Ritsuka helps Kaduka get out of her funk with the wallowing and the drinking, and supports her on her path towards finding a new job. And Kaduka helps Ritsuka learn that she doesn't have to be alone, and she actually can be in a loving and romantic relationship. And so, yeah, later on, much later, kind of near the end, we get to learn how their first encounter, that first like, well, hey, have sex with me, and then it's the next morning. We learn how it went from Ritsuka's perspective, and it completely changed everything. And so it was really fun to go back yesterday and read it all over again. And so I'm not going to explain it at all, but I will say that it reminded me of that twist in Yuri on Ice, which Amanda and I talk about in the special episode just about that. But the way Amanda was going on about it, recontextualizing things for her, exactly the same for me on this one. There are a couple of things that I think could have been better that I think are worth noting. The first is that even with the recontextualization, the consent around the first sexual encounter, I would still call dubious, because Kaduka was so drunk. But I do appreciate that that's something that Ritsuka directly addresses later on. So, you know, the kind of can't get around the fact that the consent is a little wonky there, but I still felt like it was worth reading anyway. We also get a hint of information kind of towards the end about Ritsuka having a really tough relationship with her family. And we don't actually learn how she becomes how is she a landlady at the age of 19?
Right. That's what I'm thinking. What?
There is some kind of a story there. We don't learn what it was, because there's an author's note at the end where the author basically calls out, yeah, I thought about letting you all know that, but I think it's fine if she's the only one who knows. And I was like, but I want to know.
Right.
Tell me. And also I don't think it's fair to call this a gripe, but I will say something that I thought was interesting was that at the end of the final volume, in that author's note, we are given a view into their future, who they are as a couple, which I thought was really lovely. And like, you know, I would love to see another volume, or even just one more chapter that shows us that future and what it looks like. And I'd love to see more of them. But I also appreciate that if we're not going to see that written, at least we know they absolutely have a happily ever after.
Right.
And it's really lovely and perfect for them. So, but otherwise, like, everything was really, really wonderful. I found it was so sweet. It was quite steamy. I actually think, and there is like a sex scene that happens in it that's like, there's like a blanket over them. So it's not like the most graphic, but the thing that I thought was the steamiest is actually a hand holding scene in the second volume, which is going to sound nuts. But again, much like the gingerbread decorating.
Right. I was going to say, you find
the haircut
sexy things, the haircut.
It just,
and now
it is. Yeah, no, it's this like, they're laying in bed. They're completely clothed. It was a really cute. So the landlady tends to run cold and Kaduka tends to be like a really warm person. And so that particular day, like it's just really, really cold. And Kaduka was like, yeah, you can hold my hand for heat. Like people did that for me in school. And the landlady's like, so I can just hold it all day. And she's like, yeah, why not? And so it's really cute. It shows them like, this part isn't the sexy part, but it shows them like they're eating food. She's typing one-handed, like doing all these things through the day because they're holding hands the whole day. But then instead of like cuddling in bed, it's still just a hand holding thing, but it's that like the confusion for Kaduka of like, oh, why do I feel this? How does like, she's just rubbing her thumb on my hand. Why does this feel so good, so gorgeous? So yes, for people who are looking for a very sweet manga romance, it's only a few volumes long. I really, really loved it. Like I said, that happily ever after, it's so perfect. And I'm willing to fill in the details on my own because at least there was a final note. So yes,
right. Yeah.
Go get it.
Good.
It's the cutest. That is all for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll get notified when we release an episode. If you have a friend who you think would like it, please tell them about it. If you'd like to support us, like I said before, we have links in our show notes to our coffee, our newsletter sign up. And if you're inclined to rate and review on your podcast app, we would appreciate it.
We would. Or if you want to connect with us on your favorite social media sites, we have links in the show notes for that as well. Or you can just search for Curly Recommended. And I know everybody knows how to reach us on all the social media platforms. Or you can just email us at podcast@queerlyrecommended.com. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Woo-hoo. It's working. Got it.
Nope, that is Zoom. What am I looking for? You know what's great? I go through the exact same process every other week. I've done this every other week for more than 2 years now. Right. And I still say each time, what is the name of this software I'm looking for?
Every time.
Every single time. What could be better? Anyway, start when you like.
Let me take a drink. Ugh. Do you know I do so bad at polygraph tests?
Well, it's a good
even
thing
though I'm not lying. Yeah, I know. I mean, I would just do so bad at it because like near my anxiety right now, just to even say the intro, I was like,